Good morning. Welcome to Wake Up Real Estate. NAR
What?
settles. Now what? NAR settles. Now what? Is what we're gonna
Comment down below.
Yeah, yeah.
Let us know what happens next.
We would more prefer just us reporting your comments than
Touching this one.
our own commentary. But I think we both have some thoughts and some things to share as way of encouragement or motivation.
I think NAR let us down. Let me start by saying that. I think NAR let us down.
Well, I mean, I think that's the obvious take.
Should have been more of a fight there.
And it makes, I mean, I think I would guess that the popularity poll of NAR amongst association members right now would be the first ever consensus of any polling done ever, like real consensus. So anyway, we already are getting some engagement, commentary. We already have a great crowd, I'm sure, because of the topic. It's Monday, so we will talk motivation, maybe a little mortgage and marketing as it relates to this settlement and what the potential implications are. I'm going to start with some motivation.
Yeah.
Because I don't want us to get too lost in the muck here. And
there are some positives.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great one for you to embrace as it relates to you dominating a niche or an audience, which is this: work until you no longer have to introduce yourself.
Ooh.
You want to build an audience such that when they see you or they hear your voice or they get your email, they know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
You know, be the trusted authority, which does perfectly relate to some of, what this settlement means. Be that trusted authority, be the person that is recognized at the grocery store or at the restaurant or at the local, sporting.
Can I ask you something related to that? When you're at your kids, like when you're coaching and stuff, and you're at games, do people in your community kind of know who you are or talk to you about real estate?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
And I will not just that. I often get comments related to a specific video or bit of content that I shared. They'll say, well, I had no idea X, or, that's pretty wild that Y, or whatever it is. So it's not just that they're seeing the content, but a good many of them are actually like watching it, or at least watching the captions, with the video on silent because they're supposed to be working or whatever it may be. So absolutely. I mean, and better to be more well known with a smaller, tighter than just minimally known amongst a larger population or audience size.
Yeah, because if you're going to have to become a listing agent, which could be the case, who knows, more trust is needed there, maybe. I mean, tying this back.
Yeah, I have a counterpoint to that too that we'll dig into, I think, as well. But before we get into that, Ryan, why don't you share? I saw that you had a social post already.
Yeah, but this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing today. Either way, you have no choice.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I was trying to be clever. I don't know if I hit the mark here or not, but I was thinking over the weekend that who wins here, and it's the real estate attorneys. If I were a real estate attorney right now, I'd be getting the word out that, hey, you need to hire me. If buyer agency is going away, you need to hire me to help you with the transaction. Because the truth is, that's why I'm surprised NAR. I was reading some Reddit threads and stuff, and people were like, things were the way they were because of lawsuits. Basically, that's how everything gets to be the way it is.
Exactly.
So we're going back to, I don't know how many years ago, when the dual agency started. It had to be 30, 40 years ago at least. It's always been here since I
think 30-ish.
Yeah.
I think 30 or so. Maybe
so we're
it is
taking
40.
a step.
Maybe it was the 80s.
Yeah,
80s
we're
or
just taking a
90s.
step backwards to where, if you're a buyer and you're going directly to a listing agent or a seller, you're kind of at a disadvantage. Kind of goes without saying here to this crowd, but
Yeah, I
so
mean, it's buyer beware, right? I mean, that's why that phrase even exists.
yeah.
Is that originated before we had buyer agency and the fiduciary responsibilities split, and you know
So
that setup, which was to protect the consumer, to protect the consumer. I mean, um,
yeah.
Francine here, I didn't vet this.
So on the social post front, before you read that, so I
Yeah,
guess today maybe there is an opportunity to talk about this. Don't use what I did if you don't, but to talk about the settlement and maybe talk about what buyer agency is or was, and what you think. Just don't. I don't know. I'm trying to not to do it in a negative way.
yeah.
Don't bash anybody. So
Francine, I mean, this is an interesting perspective. I've been saying this. I see it coming in next 6 months. Plus, now it's going to become a protected class equal housing issue potentially for sure as
yeah,
well. She said, "I'm in Alabama, and we are the only buyer beware state, so we just completely screwed the buyers." Yeah, I mean, Mark confirmed it was early '90s, so about 30 years that it's been around. And I thought that's what Glenn Sanford had released a little 10-minute video on Friday or maybe Saturday
yeah.
reacting to this. I thought that's what he had indicated. And Chris says, I think that both sellers and buyers need us more than ever. Here's what I mean, there's so many ways we can go with this, but I think Chris, 100%, in the world we live in, I do think now more than ever, buyers and sellers are going to need representation. And also, it means that now more than ever, we have to be able to communicate the value that we're providing in exchange for that service. And that is the biggest opportunity that I see in this, because I'm sure you would all agree, and I'm sure you have all had lots of experience with agents that don't provide actual service, that almost approach it from an entitlement perspective. That and I've had some of these phone calls with veteran agents over the years when I've done some things that are a little bit unique and different, and them just thinking that we'd all be better off. And quite honestly, I got an email response to this effect this morning, that we'd all be better off if we went back to concealing all the information and making people come and look at books, and be reliant on us for that information and data. The reality is we are so far past that.
Yeah. Do you think
And
that's what the
that's just
consumer
okay.
wants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
you so what does that mean, specifically? There's going to be more competition for listings.
Yeah.
There just is, amongst the professional realtors. There's going to be more competition, and so you either have to embrace that competition and find ways to win, or embrace the fact that buyers are still going to need representation. And if that's your preference, I still think there's massive opportunity. If you
To plant the flag in the sand and say, hey, I'm a buyer's agent. Here's what I do. Here's why you need me. You got to become good at marketing that.
you articulate the value you provide and the service you provide, and you educate the consumer.
Yeah.
The amount of content that you now have the opportunity to create, to position yourself around why a buyer should have representation, means twofold. Number one, it will repel the ones that aren't going to be a good fit to work with you. The ones that are okay with taking on the risk of going directly to the listing agent and not having, representation that has their fiduciary interests at heart. Okay. So you're repelling them. You don't want to work with them anyway, right? They're going to, they're the ones that are going to try and negotiate every little thing with you. and question your value, which if you're not confident in the value and service you're providing, that's probably the first thing you've got to fix. And number two, by providing that education, you're going to naturally attract people that will value what you're going to provide for them in the way of service and being that protection for them throughout the process. So, I mean, I just view that as, that's the contrarian view. I think that if you choose to embrace that, you could be a massive winner while everybody else is fighting for the same pool of listings, which we already know the inventory pool and the potential opportunity pool is very small and it's finite.
Well, it's the smallest it's ever been right now, too.
Yeah,
double whammy.
I think there's an opportunity for those that want to dominate the other side of that and do so in a way that you could have a competitive advantage in your marketplace, and the sooner the better. The sooner you get started planting that flag, the more likely you are to to win short term and long term. We got lots of comments here. This is good stuff.
Let's do it.
Andrew, Uber drivers with a real estate license will be the new door openers, $25 per door. I mean, Redfin's kind of been trying to do that for years.
I mean, that's kind of where I started my career. I worked at a brokerage where the broker had a fair amount of inventory, and a lot of what I did as his assistant was I went and opened doors as a representative of the company. So that could come back around. But that doesn't have to be your fate, as Josh was just saying. I mean, you could be the listing agent. There are agents now, Josh, who charge like a $5,000 retainer to help you find an investment property.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll say this isn't exactly apples to apples, but I've listed and sold numerous properties where I charged a flat fee, significantly later than 3% on the listing side, because the property was $70,000, $50,000, $40,000, and I just made the case to the seller, this is all that we do. I'm not going to not do these things because this is how we operate when we're doing these. And because I had positioned myself and I had built a relationship and I had proof of the result that they were wanting, I got the business. I don't know, somewhere in my Facebook feed this morning was very insightful bullet points from someone in the industry on some takeaways. And, one of the things in there was just addressing this idea that a lot of the press releases and the news and information around this is about this, we're getting rid of fixed 5 to 6% commissions. Well, it's never been that. It's always been negotiable. Always.
It's always been all over the map too. There's discount brokers operating.
There's discount brokers. There are also listing agents that are 7, 8, 10%.
That's
that split however they deem, or however they're able to negotiate it.
This is part of why I say NAR is letting us down, that not just with this, but over the years, because that should have never become the narrative.
Yeah.
If our dues were going to the right place,
right.
People would understand that they have options, with respect to. So,
Chris, I couldn't agree more. And there's nothing we can do about this, but the press is out of control, though. They're reporting such bunk. I mean, unfortunately,
we all copy each other. Yeah.
And also, that is true. And also, it creates the opportunity for you to create content, telling the actual story and why this is nonsense and it's, sensationalistic and designed just to get clicks, because that's the world we live in, unfortunately. I mean, that's just news outlets that really, that's what it's become about. How many clicks can we get on our articles, etc. Vets, VA buyers, and FHA buyers and USDA will seriously be affected badly. Maybe.
So, is there an opportunity to become a specialist in those programs?
Well, so that's exactly what I was going to recommend, right? So if you're the agent in your market that decides to embrace helping that clientele, some things to think through. Number one, having a great relationship with a lender. Okay. We'd love to be that for you, but regardless, having that great relationship and someone that knows the guidelines in and out and in as detail as possible so that a deal can be structured so that the seller is getting what they want and the VA, the FHA, the USDA buyer can still get what they're looking for. And there are lots of creative ways to do that. It's about looking at the the transaction from a different perspective in many cases. And then I'll throw out an example of why knowledge is so critical when it comes to this. A significant cost for buyers is title insurance. Okay. And President Biden addressed this a little bit. What was it? A couple of Thursdays ago. And also, we have one major lender that has a program that can, where in certain situations and scenarios, the buyer does not need to pay for full title insurance. It's a program where they can pay about 10% of what title insurance normally would cost and still have the same protections. They still have clear and equitable title. They're just not paying the significant title insurance fees.
I'm thinking about the business relationship behind that and wondering, okay, how are they doing it?
I don't know,
Yeah.
quite honestly, other than able to have taking a different approach to the data information and the trail of title,
Yeah.
right? Now, if the property has had, been sold on tax lien or a tax auction or foreclosure, whatever, it is definitely not going to qualify, right? But a new construction home, for example, or
Right.
a home that has clean title,
If the
maybe
chain
it's
is pretty,
one owner or two owners.
yeah, if it's got a
50
pretty
years,
clean chain, then you can do it cheaper, maybe. Yeah.
exactly. And so there are, and I think so I highlight that for two reasons. Number one, making sure that you're aligned with someone, in the mortgage and finance side that knows some of the, I'll call them loopholes, but they're not really loopholes, like that knows some of the, different guidelines and things of that nature, so that you can explore as many different ways possible to put a transaction together. And number two, I think you're going to see more of that come about as the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months unfold. We're going to have to address in some way, shape, or form the ability for buyers. Like we have to keep, real estate transactions is critical to our economic environment, right? So we're going to have to proactively do things to keep
Transaction
transactions
flow.
happening. Yeah. And so what all that looks like, I don't know, but there will be changes. There will be things, it's happened for years, right? We only have this like small view of what the real estate market, many of us can't even hardly remember what it was like pre-COVID, but the reality is the real estate market has been chugging along for, forever. And so, things will change and there'll be new programs. There'll be ways that buyers can maybe finance their closing costs over and above. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that I think will come from this.
I like Ernest's point here in the comment on the screen. There's probably opportunity here. So maybe you just become a shopper, like to Andrew's comment for 25 a door. Maybe you put yourself out there and say, hey, I will find you and show you homes, but it is a flat fee, right? It's
so Ernest, the comment is a la carte buyer services coming soon. And a great listing strategy that great listing agents have been using for years is a menu of listing options. Even you can do the same on so this is our gold, this is our silver package, this is our gold package, and this is our platinum package, right? And clearly communicating what you get at those different levels of service. That absolutely, I'm not suggesting that's the solution for everyone, but it might be the solution for you. It could be.
Because think about what happens when so a listing agent's not offering buyer agency representation. So they've got a sign outside, it's online, it's in the NMLS. They start getting calls from a bunch of buyers. The buyers, we know it, the listing agent doesn't call the buyers back in a timely fashion or whatever, or the buyer feels like they're missing out on deals because of politics or whatever. They, that the last deal they lost out on, the listing agent liked another buyer better than them. So some consumers are going to say, hey, I want help with this, basically. People will always pay for service if you can provide it. So
Francine says, and we know the listing agents don't answer calls and texts. Now, I would say that I'm always I have this conversation with my kids all the time, right? Blanket statements like that, always, this, that, and the other thing. I try to be careful about that. But I would say more often than not, Ryan and I are very well versed in the REO foreclosure world, and those, generally speaking, I mean, they just had no. So point is, you can turn that into opportunity for yourself as being the one that does reply.
And if you're a listing agent, you're going to have to start replying, because sellers, you might even advertise that in your honestly in your listing presentation. It might be, hey, we have a staff who's answering every call from a sign with a live human in the United States. That might become a thing. Because if I'm a seller, I want to know that those calls are getting answered.
Mark, to our point about the wide range of commission options, if you look at auctions, 10% buyer premiums, and even in some cases more, that is real. Not just on real estate. I mean, all types of auctions. My dad and brother actually own an auction company, and they study real estate auctions, and there are tons of auctions that still happen on a weekly and monthly basis in Lancaster County, right here in Pennsylvania. That is the case. It's a 10% buyer premium. It is what it is. And they sell successfully pretty consistently. Wow, hold on.
Were you looking at this? I like this comment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Man, now my tinfoil hat's going on in lots of ways, because what is driving all this? All right.
Ryan, well, 100%. So the leadership at Zudelio has been saying this even way before the NAR settlement. This is back, late last summer, when everything was happening with KW and the others, which is, I'll read Ernest's comment. It also gives iBuyer programs an upper hand in this market to dominate. Sellers won't need to worry about paying a buyer agent, because most iBuyers represent themselves, right? That they don't care about a buyer commission, because they're representing themselves, and it's Brian Stevens at the National Real Estate Post and the folks at Zudelio were talking about this months and months ago about.
So the money behind the lawsuits, hiring the lawyers, could be the BlackRock.
100%.
Sorry, I said it out loud.
Yep, 100%. I mean, listen, there's a lot of money in this industry, and so everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie, right? So I don't think it's a tinfoil hat theory. I mean, I think there's a logical explanation for that, right, wrong, or indifferent. Here's one. I mean, I think, Chris, you're kind of emphasizing what I see as an opportunity, right? Buyers needing representation, and you need to figure out how a seller credit can help with buyer agent commission. And even in this crazy low inventory market, there are homes that aren't selling. So there's still opportunities. And if they're not selling, and you bring the buyer, some way or another, you're going to be able to put that transaction together, and I'm going to give some kudos to Cosette on my team. She's gotten 3 or 4 buyers under contract in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And literally, we are still in like historically low inventory in Central PA, but she's working, right? She's working, and when you do the work, good stuff can happen, right?
So,
And sometimes properties come back on the market, right? There's any, if you're the one that's persistent and consistent, there will be.
and a silver lining here could be, that a lot of people are going to leave over this news. I saw a guy saying, he's retiring. So you might have less competition. And then if you double down on the fact that you're a buyer's agent, there's opportunity.
And one thing I would keep an eye on is what are the builders doing in your market?
Yeah.
Right. There may or may not be an opportunity that on that side.
Well, so builders have always offered incentives to agents, right?
Right.
In some form or fashion, and they are. I mean, in a lot of cases, they're just FSBOs, builders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there will be some that come from it or come at it from a point of abundance and continue to offer incentives and maybe even increase the incentives as a way of standing out in the market. And there will be some builders that approach it from a scarcity mindset, and they'll pull back. And what will likely happen is you'll see more of that inventory sit longer, most likely. At least that's what I've seen in the past, right? So that's something to keep an eye on. If being a buyer agent and continuing to focus on or build around a buyer agency, finding those pockets of opportunities for you, and even actually going to real FSBOs. The script that we know that works like crazy is if I brought you a buyer,
would you pay me commission? Yeah.
Would you pay me a finder's fee, right? And then actually like bring them a buyer, like do the thing that you're asking them for, and that can work great as well, right? That could be your niche. That could be the way that you survive and thrive as things evolve and change. Who knows?
So will homes sell faster or slower when there are no buyer agents in the market?
Well, that's a great question. Comment below. Do you think homes will sell faster or slower because of this ruling? That should get some. That should get some good conversation. Mark says, yeah, just show up with a cash offer at the FSBOs, right? If you're using, a platform like Zudilio, that is a great way to get your foot in the door, right? They may not like the cash offer, but you're actually showing them, you're actually demonstrating something to them. Or I'm going to let you comment on this. I'll read it, Ryan, and then you. Do you think all of this is the Fed's workaround to curbing inflation, slow down the market activity, market manipulation at its finest?
I don't think they're that smart, but I don't know. Maybe I'm.
Yeah.
The only thing that'll curb inflation is raising rates. So whatever.
Yeah. The consensus is slower, and Andrew explains why. Much less traffic and appointments with buyer comp. And it also goes to Mark, I think, hopefully this will do some house cleaning in the industry, 1,000%.
So slower,
let's face it. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think it, go where the puck is going, right? So slower, do the Gretzky thing. Slower means more FSBOs and expireds. More frustrated sellers, maybe.
Probably, right? Their house expires. So, they're expired, and maybe they try to sell for sale by owner, which then their neighbor sees, oh, they tried to list it, it didn't sell. I'll just start with for sale by owner. And Andrew's logic here makes a lot of sense. Let's face it. So many buyer agents, not the ones that are on here, right? We're talking about the folks that are in this business because they thought it was a quick buck. It was an easy way, and they they see the big commission checks, and that's why they're here. So they have commission breath, and
commission breath.
Yeah, I mean they do, and many of them will look at the buyer agent commission being offered in the MLS, which is part of the settlement, says that that's going to go away, and so we're going to have a mass exodus of buyer agents, which means fewer showings. And one of the things driving up prices right now is multiple offers and just the sense of scarcity on every good listing, right? The idea that there's a line of cars showing the property, and that's driving and creating this this psychological scarcity effect, and that's what's driving more offers, etc. But for example, the house that we just listed, my past clients, we got it on the market in less than 24 hours. We had 10 offers in 2 days. And if we had kept showing it one more day, we probably would have had 15 or 20 offers. That's not going to happen to that same degree. It just won't. And again, that means opportunity to provide real value and service.
Did you just make that up? Commission
breath? Are you kidding me? No way. I
I've
stole
never
that
heard-
years ago.
Never heard it before.
Yeah, Ernest says they'll sell slower because no agent will work for free. And sorry to say, but probably 60% of buyer agents won't be able to project their value proposition. I think you're being kind, Ernest. I would put it at north of 80%. I would set it at north of 80%.
You got to use commission breath in your marketing somehow, some way.
Oh yeah, I mean that's great. Ryan came up with that literally in while we were live on here, which is pretty good.
Canva's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Francine says it'll take longer to get appointments. Absolutely. Slower means that the client that wants to see 4 houses tomorrow, we now have to call each agent and find how much. Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot more coordinating and negotiating and organizing that's going to happen.
And people will pay for convenience.
Yeah.
And people will pay for convenience and speed. And so if you put yourself out there, hey, you can even get yourself like a cool bus for like buyer tours and be like, make it a fun thing. Just brand yourself as like the home tour specialist.
Yeah.
There's opportunity.
Definitely. There's always opportunity, right? There's always opportunity. It may not always be as readily apparent, right? It might take time to realize, what that is and how it relates to you, but there's always opportunity.
What if, first time home buyer tour, Saturday morning at 10, $50 for the tour. You include some food, you take like 5 groups of buyers around. I don't know. I'm just thinking, making an event, have it sponsored by a mortgage lender and a real estate attorney who wants to handle the transaction. Rest of stuff aside, you got to figure all that out. But yeah, there's this could get fun.
Yeah. And just as listing agents lever their time with showings by buyer agents, can you imagine a listing agent accommodating 40 showings over a weekend? Ain't going to happen. Exactly.
Oh, you'll do it, Andrew. You'll do it.
Putting him on the spot. Some great comments here. But I think we're gonna come in for a landing.
Well, let me give you a landing because this isn't exactly my side of the fence here. But if you are thinking about leaving the industry because of this, and it's not an irrational thought, right? Another option to continue to serve buyers would be to join the lending side of things. Is that a fair thing to say, Josh? Teeing you up there.
Yeah.
No, it's an option.
And also, in either scenario, the dual licensing, it's just another reason that you might explore adding another revenue stream, because if you're the one, if you can, I'm never in favor of discounting your value or your worth. But the reality is there is that downward pressure on commissions. And so if you can find other ways to provide service and value and differentiate where the competitors in your market don't have that opportunity, that's really how you win in business, right? Is figuring out how you can pay more to acquire a customer than your competitor. That's really, what most of business boils down to.
Thanks, Michael. Let's just give credit for the commission breath to Floyd Wickman.
I'm sure I stole it from Floyd, I would guess anyway. Oh boy. Okay. So lots of great comments. Keep them coming if you're watching after the fact. I think there's valuable nuggets in here for others. Andrew had a very nice comment that we appreciate. It was something along the lines of this subject brought a lot of viewers to today's program. It shows the respect they have. Well, that's very kind of you to say.
Josh just wrote a good subject line. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, every once in a while. It's every once in a while. So, housekeeping items for the week. Obviously, this will continue to be a conversation, and not just this week, but I mean, honestly, I would guess that we're going to have shots fired daily on means and what the implications could be, and how do we use that information to make better decisions moving forward. So we'll continue to weave that into our normal show flow and topics, etc. And I would see obviously also an opportunity for us to have some guests on to bring opposing views and different perspectives. And so maybe even as early as this week. And if any of you have anyone that you'd like us to try and get as a guest because of that differing perspective, let us know. And I'd be happy to.
Yeah, sorry, Josh. Just like a parting question for those of you who do primarily list, and maybe this is broker policy more than individual listing agents, but how soon are you going to not be offering buyer agency compensation? That's the other side of it here, because some listing agents might say, no, I want to offer it, and I want to recommend to my sellers that we offer buyer agent compensation.
Yeah.
Because it does make sense. Yeah.
Yep. Alina asked for a follow-up on my one campaign system I was testing later this week. How about that? That's a good question. I will absolutely follow up later this week. Yeah, I mean, Floyd, this applies to every area of life, right? People do not care what you know until they know you care, right? I mean, that's coaching, parenting, teaching, 100%. So
Mark's response to my thing just now is really good. Yeah, it is up to the seller. So you kind of got to offer it to the seller, don't you?
Exactly. And I would present, here are the pros and cons. Yeah. Lay it all out there, and then and that's the approach I take on pricing. I present the pluses and the minuses, but ultimately it's their choice what we price it at.
Yeah.
And if they want to price it too high, I can tell them, listen, I'll do this, but I'm pretty confident I know what's going to happen here. So if we're going to go that route, we need to reconvene in 7 to 10 days based upon the amount of activity to plan moving forward. And in most of those cases, they price it at where I'm recommending versus the number that they originally had in their mind or whatever.
So same conversation. If you decide not to offer listing buyer agent compensation, then penny wise, pound foolish. Basically, you can make that argument. Yeah,
exactly. My job is to help you net the most from this sale. Here's how I think we can do that, and here's why. Ultimately, it's your decision, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. Tomorrow is Texting and Traffic Tuesday. Jordan and I think we'll be doing an info session in the afternoon as well. I'll as soon as we have that topic and the link and all that set up, we will certainly let you know on that. We've got a full slate and maybe some special guests this week as well. Keep the comments coming. We so appreciate the great crowd here this morning and the thoughts and commentary. And I want to encourage you all, don't let this discourage you. There is a huge opportunity, and you are, as of this morning, competing with fewer realtors in your market. I can virtually guarantee that as well, that there are many realtors that quiet quit this weekend, guaranteed. And so that screams opportunity for you if you just commit to doing the two things that we talk about often: grow your database and nurture your database, because that's where having that relationship means they're going to listen to you when you recommend that we include having a buyer commission, and when you recommend a certain pricing strategy, things of that nature. If you've already got that established relationship and rapport with them, they're more likely to trust you as as the educated professional, the experienced professional in the industry. So Good stuff as always, Ryan. And we'll see everybody tomorrow back same time, same place.
Thanks.